objective today was to talk about the food pyramid, talk about what people are saying about the food pyramid, and then talk about the implications that this has. And I have a lot pulled together, believe it or not. So I actually came highly prepared today.
Good.
And I cared with a video. And now this is where things could go awry.
Yes, if you play video, they will go awry.
I'm going to attempt this because I need to see your reaction live.
Okay.
Okay?
This is where flip a coin as well as the work.
Okay, hold on. Here we go.
If you want to make it work, you could make it work.
Thank you for your vote of confidence. That was actually very kind of you.
It's dinner time on the East Coast in less than an hour. People are going to die.
Sir, we've got a boy on the hotline that says he might know something.
Who is this?
My name isn't important. What matters is that the answer is in the pyramid.
The pyramid? That's ancient stuff you're talking about. Are you sure? Bring up the pyramid.
What is it? What is it for?
We built the pyramid a long time ago to illustrate how much people should eat of the 4 basic food groups. Sir, we abandoned the pyramid when Michelle Obama got involved. The pyramid doesn't work. We've already tried it.
It's upside down.
What?
Sir, the pyramid is upside down.
Turn the pyramid upside down.
You can't be serious. That would put butter and fat at the top
Flip
of
the damn food pyramid!
This is not FDA approved.
It's dinner time on the East Coast in 10 minutes. Now do it!
Sir, we've got a match. Nutrition is stabilizing.
We've got a well-balanced vaccine, sir.
Get the president on the phone. Tell him to have some steak with his bone.
Well, I gotta admit, you guys throw a pretty sweet party. Hey, we'd do anything for our bros, man. Would you guys care for a Philligan Buddy Pop? We're good, Scott. Stop bugging us.
We really dodged a bullet, young man. Thanks to you, America knows what to eat again.
Yeah, well, I'm glad people aren't mad at you anymore. I know what that feels like.
We're gonna get a better view of the stage.
Yeah, enjoy the party.
Okay, we got it. We don't need to cover anything else.
Did you happen to notice the most important element of what you just saw?
The butter on the butter stick put on the steak?
No.
Done that before.
No?
What is it?
You ready for it? That video is from 2014.
Oh, so there's nothing new about flipping the pyramid.
No.
Well, that's easier. So it's not that radical.
No.
Okay, good. Work is done.
I mean, can you believe that?
Yes, I think I can believe it.
Okay.
It takes decades to change perspective. We had a food system that worked for us for 350,000 years. Our bodies were tuned to it. That's system A. And then we dove into the idea that we wanted to boost yield. So we ended famine. And we decided that we were going to have hero healthcare to solve awful diseases. And we eliminated pathogens. And, everybody in the 1880s died of pathogens and such. And so the reason they had a 40-year-old life span was because a whole bunch of people died at 7. So System B ended famine, and it ended pathogens, but then we thought that System B could fix food. We took the signal out of food, so getting yield up, took out micronutrients and took the signals out. Signals program our bodies. Our bodies were trained for 350,000 years how to adapt to the signals that it saw. We muted them, we got rid of them, so we confused our bodies, and it takes 40,000 years for us to evolve to a new system. but we evolved to a new system in whatever 70 years, and so now we're at a system C where we've got to say we want hero healthcare for acute. We want we want to make sure people don't die of pathogens, and we want a food system that ends chronic disease. Then healthcare can focus on acute with hero healthcare, and food can solve chronic disease, and we can reduce healthcare costs. And so,
Yeah,
it's that simple.
it is. So, but we have a food pyramid, and that's what we promise everyone we talk about today.
And
But
it sort of does focus on N of one in a sense. I mean, I don't know what the flipping the upside down or not means because I've got dyslexia, so I don't. It just causes me to do flips, but the whole pyramid thing, it's sort of like it's very pointed as like it's focused on you. I'd like it to say human-based outcomes, first principle, human-based outcomes. You got to get the
I
food
know.
signal programming you, and your body is
We'll
programmed.
create a new pyramid, Carter. Okay. So here's the headline, right? Eat real food. That's the core message. The exact guidelines based on a 2,000 calorie pattern are protein. I'm not going to show the image. I'm instead going to focus on what's in the true guidelines. Everybody's kind of gotten caught up in the clip art debate, which we'll talk about in a minute. But let's just focus on when you read, if you go to realfood.com and you go to guidelines, there are 3 documents that you can download in PDF. We shared those last week on the Substack in our piece on the food pyramid. So, and when I post this video, I will try to remember to put that link back in there again. It is protein, 3 to 4 servings. Serving size, and this is what they say: 3 ounces of meat, 1 egg, 1/2 cup of beans. So no, the image does not have beans. I've seen fun ones where people sprinkle beans all over the back of it. Animal and plant sources, bake, grill, not fry. This is what it says. Dairy, 3 servings, 1 cup milk. A serving is 1 cup of milk, 3/4 cup of yogurt, or 1 ounce of cheese, for example. Key guidance: full fat, no added sugar. Vegetables, 3 servings. A serving is 1 cup raw or cooked, 2 cups leafy greens. And key guidance: fresh, frozen, canned, okay. Fruits, 2 servings, 1 cup raw or 1/2 cup dried. Limit juice, whole fruit preferred. Whole grains, 2 to 4 servings. 1/2 cup of oats, rice is a serving. 1 slice of bread is a serving. Avoid refined carbs, white bread, crackers. And finally, healthy fats. Serving size 4, or servings 4. Serving size is 1 teaspoon of olive oil or butter. And then key guidance: saturated fats still capped at 10% of calories. That's the exact guidelines. What people are saying, supportive. AMA president, American Medical Association president, it's not American Association, it's the AMA. These guidelines affirm that food is medicine. Dr. Huberman says he publicly praised the pyramid on X.
Publicly, he didn't privately.
On X. Publicly on X. Our friend Dari, Dr. Mozafarian from Tufts, both low fat and whole dairy are linked to lower cardiovascular disease. Now, he also went on to say that he thought the food pyramid, that eating real food was important. I have a lot more than that. And then critical. And I have some other pieces. From Stanford, DJC, Dr. Christopher Gardner, very disappointed, goes against decades of evidence. Dr. Marion Nessel, who I really like, we have signed books from her now. Muddled, contradictory, ideological, and retro. Dr. Eric Topol, this is probably one of the funniest ones, was a summary, this was his quote, a summary of data supporting more meat. And then he showed a blank box. Oh, it was funny. Academy of Nutrition and Diabetics. Butter, beef tallow, emphasis inconsistent with saturated fat limit. Barbara Rue's RDN, no fiber mention, ? Hello, skyrocketing cancer. Dr. David Katz, and he had a New York Times op-ed.
I didn't have a fiber I was surprised about
Yeah,
that.
that is a problem. The new food pyramid is a gift to the meat industry. Um, and then they jump. I haven't even had a chance to read it yet, but Wall Street Journal just put out, I think today, an article on it, and their kind of line up to it was, "We've never seen this many changes demanded all at once," and that the food giants are scrambling. Then there's the controversies, and I think this is where we'll start to. Oh, let me say this.
I want to go back to that one. If this is the thing causing them to scramble, they're dead. If you're waiting, if the CPGs are waiting for the FDA guidance to come out to figure out whether they should be changing their business, they're done.
No doubt.
Done. I mean, that's just a ludicrous. It's like I go on a little bit of rant. Like everyone's like, "Oh, the government's screwing with the GDP and jobs data, and they're going to screw everything up." There isn't a single hedge fund in the world that operates de novo or principally off of any of the government data. They go figure it out all themselves. They just look at the government data to figure out what all the other idiots are doing. And then they, because they're called a hedge fund. If there are any CPGs out there listening, if you are not going to bed every night, rereading the KDD Lustig report and understanding how to make it real, you're an idiot. Sorry. And if you're at Davos, go talk to the KDD team. They'll be there. Go talk to Wolfram. Don't do it exactly the way they do it. That's not the point. But I've got a System C viewpoint of how to redesign
KDD is the Kuwait Danish dairy, and yes, they have made a commitment to redesign the food that they are producing and selling.
They've done it.
Well, they haven't done it all. Talk to Wolfram. I mean, they have the manifesto. They have not executed it all. But they are committed to it because they realize that they created a metabolic.
This is a metabolic matrix. Wolfram and their CEO who's very passionate about this will be at Davos. So if you're at Davos, go chase them down. Tell them we told you to see them. We're not going to Davos. We decided that we're going to focus on.
Yes, but next year, Carter, game on. We're going to Davos.
I don't know about that.
No, I'm bringing my skis.
Suit me.
I do want to share this.
Did you know that Davos sued me?
I did not know that. Oh, yes, I did know that.
An event called Davos on the Delta down in Memphis, and they sent us a cease and desist order, and I was like, what? Were you, like, registered the name Davos, the city? And they had.
There you go. I'm sharing this for a second because I thought it was a good one. We're kind of talking about what people are saying about the pyramid before we dive in, or as we dive in. I do want to back up for a second, though, and say, if you've been on the whole time and you watched the video of South Fork, that's the name of my son's school, South Park. See, this is where the brain report is causing me concern, Carter, from chat. South Park, that episode that we just showed at the beginning of this to kick it off about the food pyramid, that was from 2014. That is actually part of an episode that is, it was about gluten, and it was called Gluten-Free Ebola from season 18. And we will have to do an episode. We will have to show that full episode because it actually goes into like fire hosing down fields of grains and getting rid of ultra processed snacks. And there's an inference to Aunt Jemima because they're going to take away the high fructose corn syrup. So it's pretty. I mean, honestly, like I sort of feel like maybe I think these guys are predicting the future now. But anyways, I did want to show this.
It really, honestly, is it hard to predict? We've known this for a long time.
No, I know, Carter, but it's just funny when you see it in real time. So this one I wanted to show as an example. So this was somebody on the food. And what's interesting is when you see these polls, like I did a poll, as we all know, it has to do with your audience, right? And so this is somebody who I don't know Robbie personally, but he's got foodfacts.org. He's building it. So he's very much surrounded in the food environment. And I thought this was an interesting piece because from his world, he had 200 people vote, and 60% of the people said that this report was just industry influenced. And the other 28%, so basically 88% of people are sort of like, whatever, right? Which was my thing the other day in healthcare, where 80 what was it, 85 or 75% of people are like, people won't change, and I don't believe the data that diet related, that diet is what's causing chronic disease from a study. So I mean, it's just pretty funny that we're just ignoring this stuff. So
that gets back to this concept of first principle that we talked about on Monday, and that is we are building new companies and building new parts of the industry, and sometimes when you build things, you talk to immediate customers, you listen to what they say, you build products that work then and there, and you do it inside the system. You really don't, from an innovation standpoint, you really don't want to disrupt and create whole new markets. If you're creating Uber, you're changing the taxi market. It's an established market. You're coming up with a better, easier way to do that. And so if you come up with a radically new idea that's off in a distance that maybe is correct, but nobody's got it, that's sort of a dumb business to make. In the system B kind of world, in many ways, it makes sense. If I'm doing a startup in a particular area and I'm trying to build a new company to help people be healthier, you can lean in there. But the challenge is there's so much infrastructure and CMS and how it gets reimbursed. And do you cash pay? Do you not cash pay? That you befuddle the conversation, especially when you have, and this is sort of, I don't know how to explain this simply, you have latent demand. You have people want to do something better. Not everybody, and no, yes, some people still eat crap, and that's not what we're trying to solve for. What we're trying to solve for is the people who are going to lead our way. They're going to be a group of people, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million people in the United States who get Function Health as a Christmas present and go check their blood levels and go on to ChatGPT and load up their medical data. And those are early adopters and trying to figure this out. And so the question is how do you get this right? Now, when Musk developed his spacecraft, he said, if I can make a rocket reusable, I can cut the cost of launch to orbit 1,000, a huge, to like 1/1000th of the original cost per pound. And so he started from the first principle of how do we make that happen instead of, oh, that's too hard. And human-based outcome, get them the right food to have the right signals hit your body. I think now's the time 2026 is the time to lane change from system B, which is work within the existing system, drive innovation, to humans want to be healthier. That's the market. People want to live longer. That's the market. Lean in and figure out how to do it and ignore things like CMS. That's in the background. Maybe you figure out how to interface to it later, but humans will be better. That's it. This is the year. This is the tipping point year. We've invested for 10 years saying there will be a tipping point, and I think 2026, I thought it was going to be later, but it's earlier because of cloud code.
Yep. So we have a point in the chat of, is the key question not what is the impact of the food pyramid on the U.S.? Sorry, I didn't get this right. What is the impact of the food pyramid on the fact that 70% of the caloric intake in the U.S. is ultra processed, of which 70% is frozen entrees? ? I want to add to this before you respond to your brain processing. See if you can pause for a second for me to add to this. This was the very first thing that came to my mind last week after this, the day after I read through the pyramid and started processing it, was two things. One, we aren't ready to deliver this food pyramid at scale, not in a way that isn't going to just make people sick. Because we're just going to use old, it's like healthcare trying to scale up a broken thing, right? And then secondly, who can afford this, right? If you hand this to most people, and now what's interesting is when you read the actual dietary guidelines and you don't just look at the infographic, you start to get a better sense that you could eat along the food pyramid with SNAP. But the truth is, it's still a very expensive proposition, and it does feel a little bit disingenuous to be recommending a food pyramid that we haven't made affordable yet and we haven't scaled yet.
Yeah.
Right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a big system.
Correct.
And so you got to start somewhere. I think that the practical implications is, where does this data get used? Where does food pyramid get used? And the food pyramid is not meant, oh, this is validation for all the early adopters. They were right. I guess there's that kind of thing. What systematically is, government pulls up the rear, they come up with a food pyramid, but the food pyramid informs school lunch. It informs SNAP. It informs FDA policy. So I think it's, and I'm not sure, and maybe we should dig at this a little bit. There's sort of downstream things, and so someone can walk in and say, you don't think you won't let us label meat as being healthy for you. Cheerios can get a marking that says hearth healthy, but grass-fed beef can't. So there are all these kinds of little things that can change, and I think that is more important for late adopters, or it's important in shifts of labeling standards. There are a whole bunch of downstream kind of things that now the slow grinding wheels of government can sort of shift. But there's a large cadre of people who are already in this lane that in some cases do have validating data but aren't really publishing it because that's not their thing. They can sit around and publish data all day long and stare at themselves and do a circular sort of, I need to go get some more NIH grants to publish another study on the same thing again. Good research is important, but there are other people that are just like out there building. So and they're going to build some wrong things, but I don't know. That's an incomplete answer here, but it's a context of nobody in the real world looks to the FDA to be the leading voice on things. That's not a criticism of FDA. The purpose of government is to sort of take decisions that have been made in the market and stabilize them. Allow the regulatory frameworks to operate. The analogy I might make is when the railroads were running around, they were all a different gauge railroad, and then finally someone just sort of said, this is what the gauge of the railroads could be, and then all the railroads became interoperable.
Yeah, agreed. So
that's government's job.
We got some comments coming in, and I also want to. I apparently our friend Andy Beckman's on, and he caught the moment that I actually saw myself where I went like this, and you can see that I'm wearing two watches because that's normal.
Well, that's right. He gave you a thing. Is Andy I'm
sure. I don't know if he's got to be somewhere, not at home, but he's on, and he complimented me.
Well, it would matter if he were it were a matter if he were at
Okay, if you're at JP Morgan, we want to hear what you're seeing, Andy. That's the bottom line, right?
yeah, I mean,
Or you could tell us about CES.
If Garmin is at JP Morgan, that is interesting.
That is interesting. But I will say Andy had to have been at CES. And
oh, that's right. He's got to be at CES. That's right.
Yeah, but that was week before. So maybe Andy's still on and he's going to share like a one-liner or something that we can share.
But what is going on with your watches?
What's that?
Can you help us? He helped you get a new Garmin watch, right?
Correct. So I have this is the Garmin Fenix Pro 8. And then I have my Ultra watch. And anyways, I will not go down that rabbit hole. I am doing it side by side. I also have my Aura, and if my Ultra Human hadn't been too big for my finger and fell off into the trash can until it was too late, like the trash was already gone when I realized it, I would also have the Ultra Human on this finger. And soon enough, if I had wrist space, there'd probably be a Whoop. And just for anybody who cares, I am using the Sleep Index armband for the Garmin so that I can compare my Aura sleep data to my Garmin sleep data. I do not sleep with my Apple Watch, although I have said I probably need to so that I can do a side-by-side of Aura.
I was deving, and I got to give you the release on it. I was deving a way to take all your health data and put it in. I've got the Aura API. I need Andy to give us API access to Garmin.
Okay.
Can you make sure he does?
Really? Just because I said nice new watch, you guys are going to like jump down the path with me. So I'll go back to why we're here. We're here for the food pyramid. Sorry, everyone. I do have a tendency for squirrel, and Carter has fun sort of baiting me. So I went down that path. And there's so much going on in my brain right now. I'm trying to stay very focused on the food pyramid because it's kind of the last thing I want to talk about at the moment, to be honest.
Can you self-diagnose for Adderall?
Anywho, I'm sure I could. For $22, I bet a prescriber would give me Adderall, but I just proved that I don't need it. So, although it would probably make life a lot easier. Mike Kanji made a good point in this to say that this food pyramid touches nursing homes he's saying right. And I think the reality is it touches as far as we're willing. But this goes all the way back to just how disjointed we've become with what common knowledge and public health information is versus what the pyramid says versus what's delivered in the grocery store. Like, that's where it falls apart, right?
Well, let's talk about nursing homes for a second, because so the article we published on Monday that said, look, we had a little bit of that article to put context said, why is pharma investable and food not? And the reason why pharma is investable is it has an outcome in mind. I'm curing cancer. It's FDA validated. It's protected by patents, and it creates an environment where somebody can build a product that they can build a business around. And from an investor standpoint, that's good. That's an infrastructure. What's the challenge with food? Well, if you come up with a better protein in soy for food, and then all of a sudden somebody's taking soy and making renewable diesel and throwing the meal away because it's a waste product in the diesel process, and they're basically throwing it away for 1/10 the cost, you really can't protect the differentiation between the premium meal and the crap soy diesel meal is not 10x. So how do we bring that back into it? And so the way you do that is you need people to understand that if they eat well, not the food, but if they eat well, if the system around the food that they're eating, plus the components of what they're eating is correct, as a system, you're creating value for that allows the consumer to take their household spend on healthcare and redirect it over on the food side in a system. And the best system around that is like Kroger. Kroger is in the best. Kroger grocery owns the storefront, owns the customer relationship, has the POS data. Now with Audacious, they understand the nutrient qualities knowing the nutrient qualities, understand what signals are important to the human. So the architecture, and what that article concluded with was, if we, from a first principle standpoint, want to prove out this new market and build on it, we should find a single grocery store chain or person group willing to lean in and start to sell this down the path of saying, we're a holistic solution. We're on the path of a holistic solution of looking from a first principle standpoint. So you're going to be a customer. You're going to have your health outcome metrics. You're going to be integrated into our systems in the early days of how they get integrated. And you're going to be able to shape your food solution in a way that allows you to get comfortable to the point that you can decrement down your healthcare costs and decrement up, whether it's your cost or your whatever. You're going to lean back over to food, which, just to be clear, 50 years ago, this is how we did it. So it's not like this is for 350,000 years we did this. So this is basis. This is where you should be. But the principle that we need to get to on this, and I think I've lost what the original question that I was reacting to, is getting back to that
nursing homes.
Getting back to that. So okay, so nursing homes. So the Monday pitch was a little bit like grocery should do this, but the other thing that's come up recently is vertical farming company came to me and said, look, vertical farming got to be a mess. We've sort of changed these things around. Really what vertical farming does is it figures out what's the right recipe to grow high quality food, high quality specialty crops. And now that we've got that figured out, we can grow it under glass at scale, or we can grow it out in Salinas Valley, grow it. But now we understand what the combination of inputs and genetics should be so that we have higher quality food. Now, if there's an opportunity there to get a premium, and the opportunity to get the premium is, instead of talking about grocery, we find other value chains. And another value chain is nursing homes. Now you can start saying, well, if we want to get to a first principle place where we're worried about human-based outcome and we're trying to redesign the food system to come up with a system-level answer to the thing. Another interesting test bed is nursing homes.
So is hospitals. So is, I mean...
No, hold on. I'm not gonna accept that yet. Hold on a second. We can go there in a second. Let me finish the nursing home one. What are you trying to do with a nursing home? You're trying to persuade people who are ready to spend more. Mom and dad are better off being at this nursing home rather than another one because we feed them the right stuff. That's like a good top level marketing message. And if they're making $50,000, $60,000 a year off of mom and dad in the nursing home, if there is some incremental cost of 20% on the food part to make it more pleasant so that you reduce customer acquisition cost, that's sort of interesting. And then when you start saying, oh, I'm a vertical farming group that's now doing under glass farming and I need to build out some infrastructure, you need debt. Who is it that owns the nursing homes? BlackRock. BlackRock owns like 400,000 lives or million lives in various nursing homes that they've invested in. Well, BlackRock also would have an interest in maybe underwriting some of that supply chain to lower the cost of capital. And now you can start saying, oh, here's a system serving a distinct group of customers with a distinct interest in drawing in to reduce customer acquisition cost. And we're going to build out the infrastructure to allow farmers in the Midwest to franchise themselves in to deliver into this system. And there'll be some price premium, and we'll be able to operate in a different supply chain, Fairlife-like, a different supply chain that's a little bit protected and not being destroyed by commodity crops. This is a group that says we're going to feature high-quality food, just like a good restaurant. We're going to feature high-quality food. That's going to draw you to our retirement home. We're going to get more retirement home people than somebody else at a lower cost. We're going to be able to offset that cost through this better food system. And we have an interest in making the whole thing work without going out and bidding out okay, we can replace good carrots with crappy carrots. Because then mom and dad will be angry and they'll leave and they'll go to another retirement home. The problem with healthcare, if you're in an acute situation, healthcare, it works like what we do with MEND in terms of improving care-based outcome for value-based care, but healthcare
Okay,
doesn't see patients on a regular
I'm
basis.
not talking about downstream. I'm actually talking about the acute incident. So, like, I have a friend who's okay. It doesn't even matter. We were talking about this yesterday morning. Her mother-in-law is in the hospital.
I think
She needs to. Let me finish. Wait, let me finish.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
This hospital. It is. It's. I know where you're going, but I'm going in a different place here. There is an acute need. For example, mother-in-law in hospital. She's going to get transferred into the skilled nursing facility. So, right. But even in the hospital, she's in the hospital. She needs to heal, and she needs to heal quickly. She's not getting fed food in the hospital that is going to heal her quickly. That is a design flaw right there. I'm not talking about cardiometabolic disease. I'm talking about we are not feeding people to heal them for an acute incident in the hospital.
Yeah, and so I agree on that point. It is an important point. I think it's sort of we have a supply chain that meets it. You know, to some degree, we don't have a supply chain that meets the new pyramid. If all of a sudden everybody tomorrow started eating real food, we would stock out immediately.
Exactly. And that was what hit me last week. So, okay, I'm going to go over, I have a couple things I want to add here. I want to step back. We promised to share perspectives outside of our own, you know, this is how we think we need to redesign things. So I'm going to step back out for a second. Before I do that, we may stay down the rabbit hole for a few minutes. Mike followed up and said what I like. And then there's a couple more. AJ submitted something as a follow-up, which is good. And then Aaron Myers asked a couple questions. So Mike Kanji said, and then also I want to do a shout out to Richard Chamberlain because he has been kind enough to be posting the comments from the Substack into LinkedIn, which is just fantastic. So thank you for doing that. So I don't have to do it myself, so that everyone can see what's going on. So Mike Kanji said, what I like in the nursing home scenario is if they accept Medicare and Medicaid, then they need to adhere to the new guidelines. Now, I realize we could argue about the technicality, but it's a really good point. Who owns the contracts in the nursing homes? Airmark, Sodexo. So it pushes for change upstream.
Yep.
So
Agreed.
good point.
Excellent points.
Yes. And then AJ added, this was kind of back in the beginning.
If someone knows somebody at Airmark or at those guys that can connect us, that would be cool. Because that would be cool.
We need to do that. So then AJ added, he was the one that had submitted a couple things. So before he was the one that talked about the 70%. So he added, the issue is that food companies do not get the bill for the externalities, which is a very good point. And then
I'm sorry, say that again.
The issue is that food companies do not get the bill for the externalities.
The CPGs don't get the
correct.
The bad food.
It's completely disconnected and siloed between food and healthcare. And this is why we have Food is Health. It's why you and I came together, because that's not okay. We have to fix that.
Yeah, and the thing that's different, externalities is a triggering word because of environment. There are two components of that externality. In this particular case, the locus of the externality is centered on the person making the decision, which is nice. Like when you make a power decision, you don't necessarily, if we make a wrong power decision here, it affects Europe. Which is sort of true. I don't want to die on that vine. But the other one is time. You know, if you make, I think Lustig and others have said, you know, you're making bad decisions in your 30s that affect you in the 60s. Now, the time warp on that is your parents. So yes. You see your parents and your grandparents
experiencing. My mom is the perfect example. She's dying of dementia, and I'm watching this, and I'm only 53. She's only 78. She's got 25 years on me, and I'm going, oh my God, I do not want that to happen to me. How do I stop it?
Yeah, so there is a time machine built in within families that I think people generally recognize, the genetic and epigenetic connectivity. And And so that's sort of nice in this compared to like the climate model issue, because it's a little bit more visceral, and you've got some end runs to around what you would normally consider externalities. So I don't know what you call intermediates, but there's a time machine on those externalities, so that influences you.
Agreed. Kendall Callahan says, and if you make a comment and you don't want me to mention your name, just in your comments say anonymous. I won't mention your name. Although anybody who's watching the Substack, I don't know. I honestly don't know what anybody sees. I'm not up on the tech here. I'm just proud of myself for being able to stream on 2 platforms simultaneously and not spend an hour and a half trying to do it. So Kendall Callahan says FSA, HSA dollars for whole ancestral foods. And Carter, this is something that we've written about as part of a new health insurance, kind of a whole new scheme of how we look at health. There's healthcare. Christo talks about that. Anyways, how this is structured from a financial line perspective needs to be redone as part of redesigning the model. And the point there that she made or he made is immediately lowers the price 20% plus for working peeps because it removes that tax, and I would totally agree with that. I think any way that we can integrate supporting eating properly, but as we've talked in the summer, it doesn't necessarily have to be through front end financing to the consumer. It can also be through incentives to the consumer, which is towards the food manufacturers and grocers themselves. That's another way at this.
Yeah, I don't mind stepping through this because I'd like to, from a first principle standpoint, figure it out. Because I do know that in talking to legislators, they really don't want to pay for food. They're afraid that if they start paying for food, the lobbyists and the rent seekers will show up, and it will become a new thing. And then all of a sudden, it will just turn into a new kind of problem. So,
agreed. But on the other hand, you can use your HSA to buy any kind of supplement you want in the world. And generally speaking, there are certain foods that, maybe it becomes, again, we like throw back to 100 years ago when we had medicinal plants and food. So instead of having to buy the ultra processed version, like I was sick as a dog, right? I didn't use powdered turmeric. I went and got organic turmeric and made a friggin' tincture with organic turmeric, organic ginger, pepper, cayenne pepper, right? And they were plants. They were the actual food. And I used that instead of going to the doctor and getting some sort of antibiotic that wouldn't work for a viral infection.
Okay. Stay focused here for a second.
I am, but I was giving an example. You want to do, I'm pushing back.
From a policy standpoint, from a technology standpoint, we've been advocating affordable nutrition.
Correct. And nutrient density.
And what we mean by affordable nutrition is not, it's cheaper per se, but you recognize that right now when you buy food, you're buying two things. You're buying the food and the healthcare to stay alive, which is expensive. Now, you're paying for the food cheap and you're paying for the healthcare expensive. Affordable nutrition is I buy both without having to buy the healthcare. And so, okay, that's sort of cute economic kind of comment. Now the next step is innovation says you really got to get that affordable price below the cost of poor nutrition, which we're starting to see you can do. When you really look at the products, some of these CPG products are not actually cheap. And when you think through that, I think what we'll find is while there has been a lot of discussion of covering food under HSA, FSA, I think what we might find is that doesn't matter for a long time, or it gets worked out. So that might be a way that it just sort of works itself out. So I don't know if it's a priority or not. But I do think that the legislators who control HSA, FSA, and we've had direct conversation with the senator working this, I think their general attitude is let's give a carrot a bit to the corporates to lean over in this direction, which would mean, they didn't say this explicitly, but it might mean that if Kroger offers a membership program for healthy nutrition and charges $200 a year or something like that, that you can cover that under HSA, FSA. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe in that process that somebody, it'd be interesting if somebody created like a points program where you
Yes.
pay $200 a year.
Yes.
You build points that could be spent on better food. And that $200 allows the grocer to not be dependent on slotting fees. So grocery, for everybody's benefit, the first order of profit comes from slotting fees. So they charge the CPGs to put products on the shelf. That's their highest level of profit. The second is putting advertisements in their digital environment. They charge CPGs to advertise and position. And then the third order of profit comes from you buying food. At Costco, you pay your fee, that covers the sliding fee. So Costco's got 6,000 SKUs compared to Walmart's 60,000 SKUs because Costco's not dependent on that. And what we have seen when people move to a digital platform that does the sliding fee is I'm walking down the aisle and I see this, I buy those potato chips. That's the idea. It's a marketing technique. And for CPGs to get you to eat their stuff, they spend $15 billion a year remarketing to you all the time. This idea that everybody likes CPG food is, yes, after getting hit with $15 billion a year, Whole Food spends $400 million a year on marketing. So Whole Food doesn't really have to work that hard to get you to buy stuff.
Right, and then Costco can focus on the direct consumer signal of their members.
Yeah, so
Costco, we finally got tofu back. I only could get tofu at the Costco out in Colorado, and I kept asking the guy 1,000 ways to Sunday here in Florida, and we finally got tofu at the Costco here.
So, there's going to be this transition going on, and I think the HSA, FSA is more likely, whether we like it or not, will be available to spend on tools to facilitate that shift. And frankly, if the lobbyists from Kroger are like, look, we can move our food system here, but really you got to cover the slotting fee transition by letting us do a membership fee and charge that against HSA. That's the kind of conversation Kroger's, I don't know about Kroger, but a grocery would, the lobbyists at grocery would catch on to that and probably try to influence the decision makers. And that's probably the layer that it'll happen at. Whether we like it or not, I think just frankly we should just live with it, because if that can help underwrite the transition, they're all in a regulatory capture environment, so be it. Whatever.
Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff coming in, and I need to pause and go into this because so Aaron Meyer, and this is from a ways ago, and Alan's on, our friend Alan Reed, and he just Alan, it's as if you decided that you wanted to basically go squirrel and call me out on the side because I haven't even talked to you about what I did yesterday and today with regards to AI. I'll hold that, but your point is good. And I'll go back to that in a minute. But Aaron Meyer, a while ago, asked the question, I'm not sure what you can share here, Carter, or what's okay, but is Kroger working with Audacious? There's more here. And then she made a lot of good points around, and I had an earlier conversation about my experience with AI with somebody in healthcare, which I'm not going into. We did that live stream last night out of just randomly because it was so mind-blowing. And the points being made here are we have to work through, this was kind of back on the nursing home piece and just the broader point of how we change and what the food pyramid could actually mean. But you have to work through the FSMC, which is very difficult. We need data on procurement spend in NH. And then also, this was the conversation I had just before this with somebody was, we're speaking about patients who have wealth versus those who have the budget, those that do not have the budget to procure this type of food, which threads the needle into what Alan pointed out, because he picked up on my comment about the powdered turmeric versus whole turmeric, and saying that we're kind of looking at, we got a whole foods and American grown whole food, etc. I'll pause there, Alan. I'll get back to that, but I just wanted to kind of throw those comments out from Aaron to you, Carter, so that we could respond.
Yeah, I don't know how to respond. It's interesting. It's good that she's articulating those entities because they're outside our knowledge, but I assume that there's just a lot of downstream triggering events from this shift. I think that the cost equation.
Sorry, there's a really good thing in here from Lori from. Anyways, keep going.
I think on the cost equation, I think we all need to start to work through to really understand the bid ask on it. So if you eat well, how much more expensive is it? To eat well in a reasonable way, I think it's like 20%. And I think we can get the price down. An example is regenerative crops fail less often, but still have to pay traditional conventional crop insurance costs. It's good, there are things like that are going to flow through the system where we'll have new insurance available that's lower cost once the risks are understood. And so I'm comfortable. I'm not saying positively it will be different, but we will see the whole food costs come down. I think what we've seen is every demographic buys Fairlife. I'm not trying to oversimplify it. I'm simply saying that every consumer has a different kind of reservation price and bounces around. And I believe there are enough consumers out there, enough being like 20, 30, 40 million, who already believe they're eating the wrong stuff and want to make the shift, and that they will change their price dynamic to accommodate it. And I think we just got to let the market beat itself up a little bit here. We're not going to solve this all in one fell swoop. And probably keeping subsidies out of the system. The problem with subsidies is subsidies incentivize poor performers. So subsidies would be something like big corporates would come in and say, we want subsidies, and the government would say, well, we'll give you these subsidies if you can prove this, and they would come up with some version like we did with, I don't know if you remember when automotives were cheating on their testing for emissions, and everybody winked and nodded and said it was okay. I mean, you create those kind of environments where it blocks new entrants.
Well, so Alan makes the point, and I hope that, anyways, the first, I'm going to jump to the second piece. He makes a point. You guys are thinking about healthcare and food in a vacuum. And he says, with AI, people are realizing we will need a national income. As you contemplate that, your Whole Foods and American grown whole food could be incented. And I think that's a really good point. I will step back and say, I wholeheartedly agree with you that from an economic perspective, this is something we talk about all the time. I think every time we record something or we write something, it feels like these days we cite this. There was a graph provided in the New York Times article in, what was it, last summer, right, Carter, where it showed that over 100 years, consumers have spent of their income the anywhere between 24 and 27%. So they've stayed virtually steady at a quarter of their income goes towards the combination of food and health care. The crazy part, not crazy, is what we know has happened, is in the early part of the 20th century, consumers were spending, 90% plus of their income of that bucket on food, and then the rest on healthcare, right? And it is now completely flipped, and they're spending that. And so to your point, consumers have shown over 100 years that they have an inherent method, even though we say that people don't have any clue, that, it's all upstream, downstream. We argue there is an inherent built-in component that is keeping us consistently spending those two categories together. So.
Well, and I think that's, not saying it.
And there's a bunch of really good stuff I have to add because Lori's on from Plant Strong and she provided some really good data on here. And then there's kind of a whole conversation ensuing on this. So
I think it's we gotta realize that there are a whole bunch of foundational things changing here. And it's important for us to figure out those shifts. I think if we step back, we know economically that this trade is going to occur. And on an end of one basis, you're going to see people start to shift, and then they're going to do that. And then other people are going to watch them, and they're going to say, oh, that's a better explanation, and I think I'm going to make that shift. There's a lot of discretionary capacity here. We've seen from data that the under 40 crowd, where the over 40 crowd maybe spends on 5 or 6 cash pay wellness products, subscriptions, gym, things like that. But the under 40 crowd pays for like 15. And we're not drinking as much. So and then some of them are going to go on catastrophic care. I've run into people in the 30 crowd that just are going with no health care. I know nobody likes that.
no health insurance.
No health insurance, but
It's the reality of what's happening.
There are variations of what people are doing here, and I think that's I think it's really important to pay attention, just listen to that happen instead of saying it's wrong. Listen to that happening, and I think we'll start seeing some insights on where the price points change, but consumers will react and change quicker than in other markets. Consumers have quickly reacted and changed their spend. I mean, nobody, 20 years ago, nobody was spending $1,000 or whatever on a new phone, and people adapt. I think we should let that play itself out. I don't think we can. It's too complex to figure out.
So, all right.
I'm sorry. It's too complex to figure out the exact answer, but it's not complex to realize that the fundamental truth is a taxi analogy. People use taxis. People want to live longer. That's the market.
Yes. And they want to live better longer.
They may not know what health span and lifespan is, but as a term.
But they know what they're going for.
But they know that they know exactly all of us know the health span, lifespan of our grandparents and our parents and our children. And we process that 20 times a day, often privately, and are probably more aware of it than any other human on the planet. Like doctors or somebody else says, well, I don't think patients care enough about themselves. I don't think that, when my mother was dying, the last thing she said to us is, I shouldn't have smoked. Jesus Christ, we've been saying that for 20, 50 years. It's all right.
No, so back to this HSA question on food. There's some good, hi, Lori, if you're still there. Lori Kordowich from Plant Strong, who we love very much, Plant Strong food brand. Rip Esselstyn, anyways, they're fantastic. If you're not familiar, go out there, go to Plant Strong, check out their food line. But they are all in on food as medicine, and they're all in on really trying to solve for integrating all the way across the traditional food system into the healthcare system. And they're one of the few really focused on it. And so props to them. But she wrote, for our foods to be covered by the HSA, it has to meet all of the following. And this is in the LinkedIn live chat. So if you go into the comments for this, you can find it. But 1, it does not satisfy normal nutrient needs. Actually, what I'll do is I will copy this and paste this into the Substack comments, because the Substack viewers probably aren't on the LinkedIn piece. So there we go. This is per Lori. 1, it does not satisfy normal nutritional needs. 2, it treats or manages a specific illness. And 3, its use is substantiated by a licensed medical provider. Man, my brain really is going sideways. So that, Carter, when we talk about, what regs need to be looked at and changed and frameworks, there's ways to expand that framework slightly to still be tight, but offer a little bit more flexibility, in what people are able to do.
Maybe 11-15. I just think it is going to be. It's a hard enough thing at the Senate level. The push is to supersize HSAs. And pulling that off is going to be difficult in and of itself because it locks in a new paradigm.
Yes.
To get it done, there will be the right will not support funding food. The left may demand it. I don't know what the CPGs will do, but I think that there's a desire to just avoid the conversation for now.
Yeah, there is.
Because it just turns on. You got to remember, all these kinds of decisions turn on the lobbyists, and then the lobbyists go to town. The other thing to recognize is lobbyists are getting nowhere in DC right now.
Nope.
I've run into lobbyists that have said, we haven't had a meeting with the White House since the election, and that Brooke isn't meeting with any lobbyists. I assume Kennedy's not really meeting with any lobbyists. That's a huge shift that nobody's reporting.
Well, okay, let's come back from the political piece for a second. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so because I like where we're headed with, you really outlined well the retail environment when it comes to food in the grocery, the economic flywheel of that. And there are some good comments in here around that. So Richard Chamberlain adds, this is the exact same structure as a drug. Now, this is when we were talking about food through the HSA, like medicinal food, when I made the comment about the turmeric. What food would look like if it met HSA rules, imagine a regenerative beef product with soil nutrient profile, which we've been harping on, nutrient density testing, nutrient density data, nutrient density back to economics. I mean, this is something we've been harping on over and over again on the Substack. Amino acid density, omega-3 ratio, inflammatory markers, heavy metal absence, verified metabolic impact, and then pair that. And this is what we've been talking about at the grocery store. Now pair that with a CGM showing reduced glucose spikes, HRV improvement, inflammation reduction, weight normalization, IBS improvements. I would add to that, there's a number of cardiometabolic KPIs or biomarkers that you could add to this that aren't on here. Even cholesterol should be something, and the different components to the lipid panel. I'm saying cholesterol, but it's much more complicated than that. And a doctor writes, this food is prescribed for insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, and inflammation. And then Lori came back, and ideally a new type of grocery store would be created where all traditional slotting and digital marketing fees are not in play, where all products are 100% focused on promoting health, where food is prescribed, tastings are provided, cooking's demonstrated, and people leave with meals that feed their family in line with their health goals. I would say HEB, I wish Stacey Bates was on here. HEB is probably the closest to delivering this right now. I know it's what Whole Foods was sort of in the beginning or whatever, but what you just described, Lori, is really what HEB is starting to truly deliver.
Well, why don't we, hold on, that is the System C grocery store?
Yeah.
So why don't we restate it?
Past?
Why don't we, I'm cool with doing this. We say that's the System C 1.0 System C grocery store. Maybe there's a 2.0 or 3.0, which is you can do it without having to have any devices. It just happens. But why don't we say that's the System C grocery store? And then why don't we go through the grocery stores that we know and say, here's where it's like doing the Baldrige templates. It's like, you are CMI level, I don't know, some people may know this, like in software, you've got CMI level 1 through 5. If you're doing development in software, if you use these practices, you're 1. If you're these practices, you're 2. If you use these practices, you're 3. And everybody wants to get their org to 5. And so if we sort of say that's a System C grocery store, it has these components to it.
Yep.
And then we go through, we could do this. We could go through all the grocery stores and score them. And then Bristol's here back from playing.
And Lori's very excited at your System C grocery store, by the way.
So we do a System C grocery store. Let's define it and put it as a reference architecture. And then I would say we've talked to the independent grocers. I think that they're prepared to do this. I think that they're grocery stores that are probably 20 or 30% of the way on this already.
Yeah. And I mean, I hate to bring healthcare into this conversation, but the reality is there are some really innovative health systems. We know a few and healthcare innovators that are really interested in connecting in with this, not to sell their wares, but to redesign.
But I don't know why we don't. This was frankly what the first start of our article. I go back to the article. Everybody goes back to the Monday article on first principle drug. Right now, what we should do as a food is health network is huddle around a few stores that are like, we should, if people have got thoughts on this, let's huddle around some stores and do this. And we know that William has got this idea on some independent grocery stores, but here's the architecture. Different grocery stores saying we're moving into that. We sort of decide that this is define it and evolve it, put it on GitHub so everybody can get it and download the repo.
That's slang for AI and Claude and all the fun bells and whistles in there, by the way.
Yeah, I'm as a side note, I'm in this mode to build a Food is Health network app that lets us.
Well, you've built Hayek, and I know. At night, you turn into that. I'm just worried about your health. You need to sleep, just as long as you're sleeping. But don't answer that now for everybody.
I got up at 3:30 this morning. That was later than normal.
I know.
But I do think, no, honestly, let's think about 2026 and what it should be doing. We right here on this call, we have a network of all these people who understand these details.
This is the point of Cressonia. I mean, this is what we want to do, is we want to put these use cases out there.
And then let's say, here's the design for the System C grocery store, and invite Kroger and those people to come to it. And they don't want to do it. I don't care, but we'll say this is what it looks like. And frankly, her articulation is, it's a little DIY-ish, but I think if we think about it a little bit, we can make it a little smoother. But right now, that's where we are. We're assembling this stuff, and then we're finding shortcuts. Oh, we don't really need a CGM all the time, or we can synthesize that data from POS, and let's come up with that design standard. Anyway, that's a design.
And then she gave the good analogy. Whole Foods has ingredient standards. We need a store with health standards. It goes back to your point about the food pyramid. You started at the very beginning of this call, Carter, talking about the flipped food pyramid is really pointing an arrow down at health outcomes. That's what we should do. So we'll have to create a new a new rendition that goes down and says health outcomes. And that's the new grocery store.
And we can have it in the crack, pushing its way down like a wedge.
Yeah. Samantha Brooks added a point. What?
Let's keep working through these, but this is good, but we're hour and 10 minutes.
Yes.
Keep going.
Okay.
Until people start disappearing.
Okay. No, people are not disappearing. Some people are still joining. So Samantha Brooks says, will food prices increase with FSA, HSA? If everyone knows people are getting help with their grocery bill, I can see prices sneaking up. I think that's a valid point. That's the kind of stuff that happens. I mean, that's how I feel with AI right now. I've created these amazing masterpieces playing around with it, and I know, just like streaming television, how trying to get my son the ability to watch a football game on a Sunday night is just mental, mind-blowing frustration because of all the streaming services. In the beginning, right, we were like, oh, streaming's so great, just like AI, it's so great, it's going to be super expensive, and we won't go there.
We're going to see an order of magnitude change in cost, an order of magnitude improvement in the expression of nutrient qualities.
Yeah.
And so that, figuring out exactly how to make that work, it's going to be messy. I think these are important things to maybe trigger components of it, so they should be in the mix. But we're going to go through the same iteration like iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4 very quickly here. plus we got some scaling issues. We only have so much capacity on whole food. I think someone sort of mentioned it, but it's not well understood. The big question in food, and I was at earlier this week, last week I was at FarmCon, which is 1,300 farmers, and we were really talking about what's the future of farming. Farming's got a lot of challenges right now because Brazil is really coming online using the best of our practices, but at a lower cost of operation. And so farmers have a choice of either upscaling into more nutrient dense or downscaling into larger operations to reduce their operating cost and deliver yield. And they're at that point themselves. And so they themselves are trying to figure out which lane to be in. And they're going through a major change. And as they do that, it's going to affect the volume and capacity here, and they need some of that signal. But what it may likely mean is farming will bifurcate into a yield-oriented scale to produce fuels and maybe feed. And then another group will be focused on food and feed, and they will verticalize. So we would see that maybe this 20,000 acre farmer that's delivering row crops that are more nutrient dense to go into wheat and things for healthy food. But they might also have 10,000, 20,000 square feet of regenerative, indoor farmed year-round produce that goes into, like Chef's Garden, that goes into nutrient-dense demand and has short supply chains to local stores like Dollar General. And maybe, and frankly, if that's done correctly, because of waste reduction and because of value improvement, it may not be that much more expensive. But that's is going through that. We're seeing a bifurcation in ag right now, and they themselves have a lot of external pressure as Peru and comes online. And I think we're in an environment that's a little bit more inward focused, and how do we build new opportunities? Younger, we were at this conference. I said, how many of you farmers are using Claude Code? And 30 of them raised their hand out of 1,300 saying that they spent all Christmas time coding to do better agronomy and integrate all their agronomy reports to improve nutrient density. So that, this is happening.
It is happening. So we'll kind of land the plane in the next 5 to 10 minutes here. It has been fantastic for folks. I appreciate everyone's engagement in this conversation. We're going to try and have different conversations every week, but let me kind of go all the way back. So we started this talking about some of the criticism, some of the support, and the comments on the food pyramid at large. And I want to kind of go back to this for a second and then pose a question to you, sort of land the plane. So these are the kinds of comments that all of us were bombarded with last week. And I'm just going to read a couple of them. The question is, how much lobbying influenced the new guidelines? Where do the peptides sit in the new pyramid? Why are whole grains at the bottom? Why aren't beans and lentils higher up? I think I see a tiny clip art that might be a bean. Why are red meat, saturated fats at the top? This is terrible, very confusing and expensive. Feels like the 90s are back and not in a good way. Did they just decide to ignore the existence of my plate? I can't think of any explanation of flipping a pyramid more than a myopic understanding that top always means best, foundations be damned. What I'm reading is a picking apart, and what I also realize is 75% of the comments that I've read, those people did not read the dietary guidelines now that are attached to the pyramid. Now I understand neither will Americans. Like, I get it, it's a representation, but if we are all industry leaders, we really should take the time to read the guidelines behind the clip art. I'm just going to say that out loud, and not simply react, respond, and then write it off as being failed and horrible. There's also this big criticism that it's industry. It's all people within industry that drove it. Well, guess what? That's industry leaders. There is an element of you're going to have people at the table that are representing specific sectors within food, and it's very hard.
Who is conflicted? I don't think
the National Cattlemen's Association was what it's. I think people said that there was a statistic that 65% or 75% of the reviewers were insider, were biased. I can find the statistic, but it's bottom line though. This is where I want to land the plane is that's what we are all being bombarded with this pyramid. And I could go on and on about all of that. We have two choices here. We can either look at the pyramid and dismiss it, as I think we've done in the past, or I would say take advantage of having something that created a website called realfood.gov. 75% of what sits in the grocery store is ultra processed and really just cheap calories. And we now have a food pyramid that if you want to see it, you go to a website called realfood.gov. We have all been clamoring to try and get support of whole food in this. And this is a question to you, Carter, is I feel like this is such a great example of saying we in private industry can take this and run with it and turn it into affordable nutrition and nutrient density and a complete redesign. We don't have to wait. We don't have to rely upon, we don't have to pick apart. We can be the ones to take the good parts of it and redesign. Because if we don't, then I feel like we're at threat of the bad people taking the bad parts about it and redesigning equally.
It does go back to capital allocation. And so we know that there are corporates on the CPG side of the equation who are very focused on human-based outcomes, and they have been investing for 2 or 3 years. They've persuaded their boards they should do this. They're looking more like pharma companies. They're trying to build differentiated products, moats around those differentiated products, everything they need to do to protect their interests. And the reason why protecting their interests is important is because investors then say, oh, you have a protected interest. You can enter this market and deal with the fact that it takes 3 or 5 years to get there because you have a protected interest. So we're willing to invest in that because once you get to success, someone will just steal it from you.
Yeah.
So we still have a capital markets problem in that the capital markets understand how to do pharma. They have zero idea how to do food. That's going to be a transition.
Can I add to that? The investment thesis, I was thinking about this morning. The investment thesis is also not aligned with human outcomes. And that's an imperative part of capital markets.
Yes. And it's going to, this is sort of a blocker if capital doesn't reallocate. That's one part. I think that's the area structurally that may slow this down. We reallocated capital to AI the AI capital reallocation, even though it felt like it was all last year, occurred over about a 5-year period. So these things don't happen fast. JPM is this week. Not many people know that JPM was originally the Hamburg and Quist conference, and Hamburg and Quist in the 90s was unique as the only investment banking firm that could articulate what the internet was about. Everything we know about Amazon, the internet, everything like that, there was only one bank, Hamburg and Quist. And what they did is they communicated to the marketplace, this is what it means. So in 1995, nobody knew what Netscape or Amazon was. They didn't understand what it was. Hamburg and Quist said, we're going to explain it to the capital markets and help people understood. And they hired people who were newspaper journalists as analysts to tell the story and explain to people what was going on. And every single deal that was done from like 94 through, the early 2000s before JPM bought Hamburg and Quist, Hamburg and Quist was on every book. And it's a term called lead left with somebody else like Goldman. They were the lead on the deal, but every single person always had Hamburg and Quist because Hamburg and Quist understood what was going on. So that's a long story, but JPM bought Hamburg and Quist, and the healthcare conference is the byproduct of that. But its original foundation was capital markets don't understand this.
And we have to re-educate.
We have to re-educate them because that'll take the uncertainty in the consumer market, and we need protections of some sort. because no one's going to invest capital if there are no protections. And
I agree.
in startups, we often, and I understand the social benefit of everyone deserves to have this, but you know, if governments anyway, we got to figure out how to pull it off, and pulling it off means assembling a lot of capital. We got to assemble capital to realign the food system.
Well, and I think part of assembling the capital is in conjunction, which is what we're working on. Is we also have to put we have to show and demonstrate that this can be orchestrated. All the parts are in place, and the problem is that they're cross sector and cross industry. People aren't aware of what's going on. They aren't paying attention to how things could be realigned with existing assets, and that's on us, right? This tribe of folks that's growing. That tell your friends if you came today and you were happy and you learned. Tell them to subscribe to the Substack and get familiar with what we're doing. We're going to do some cool stuff this year with trying to get more of these, but we talked about it, I think, last week. So that's what we need to do. It's 2026. There are so many tailwinds and in our favor of redesign here that, and don't even get me started on the AI side of things. But I mean, we are allowing consumers to create their own healthcare, disintermediate healthcare the way we know it, if they want, right? And at the same time, we're pricing them out of healthcare. And the first place people go is to the grocery store, into their pantry, because they can't go get, other than GLP-1s, right? Which is huge. The next stop is the pantry. They can't just go to the pharmacist and say, give me these 6 prescriptions, right? They're looking for the solutions that they can do on their own. And now's the time for food to step up and really take a lot of share from healthcare. But you're gonna have to have some real innovators, which I know are out there. So
cool.
That's it. I will just say very quickly, for anybody on Substack who didn't see it, Andy from Garmin shared that Albertsons offers discounts on healthy food products based upon activity via their Sincerely Health app. So they're designing an element of the System C grocery store, was his point. And then Lori pointed out, what's that?
Garmin watch, you hook into their app, and then you get points that gives you credit to buy at Albertsons.
He did not clarify if it's integrated with Garmin. He just said that they offer discounts based on activity. I would imagine that any of these apps, I will now, of course, promptly go and play with this because I need to know.
Do you have an Albertsons nearby?
No, but I can still set up an account. Do you have an Albertsons nearby?
No.
Okay.
But I know someone who knows the ex-CEO of Albertsons. I should track him down.
And then Hy-Vee, I'm actually really glad to read this because I have...
Hy-Vee's been out in front of this for a while. Yes,
but I'm excited because I want to... So they have dietitians on staff and they're dedicated to food as medicine. And I have somebody that has this... Because I'm not sure that Kroger is going to bite and do anything, but if they don't, Hy-Vee is apparently this particular market.
Hy-Vee's right where I was, so it's right there in...
Yeah, I won't name the region, but I need to find that grocery store. So
that's Iowa's the central command for farming.
Yes.
Okay, we're done.
All right, we did.
Very good.
Okay, I'm gonna stop.